this afternoon. So I want to just run through a bit of a session about how important it is to set goals when you are devising a project, because without goals we can't measure how successful a project is. So why do we set goals? Well, firstly, probably the most obvious reason is they show how effective your project is. They can enable you to assess whether your time and money's been well spent, which is really important. If we're going to invest in a project, we want to know that our investment was well made. They also engage your supporters to measure and be proud of their involvement in your project. So if you get sponsorship, it's really important that we know how successful a project was, and we can go back and report to our sponsors and say, this is what we achieved. If it's a fundraising project, this is how much money we raised, and this is how much awareness we raised. It's also really important when you're reporting to your board members, so they can show that you've done a really good job in whatever you're trying to achieve. And it's also really important to set goals, because without goals, we can't. If we run the same project again, we can't compare it year on year. And improvement's what we're always trying to achieve when we're running projects with our organisations. So at the beginning of a project, it's really important to get together as a team and I think all buy into what you're trying to achieve and set really clear goals. As a team, we at Leukemia and Blood Cancer New Zealand run a number of fundraising events. So when we're setting up an event, the first thing we do is have a team meeting and set some really clear KPIs. And when we look at what we're trying to achieve, we aim to go for SMART goals. We make them SMART. So they're very specific, they can be measured, they can be achieved, because there's no point in setting goals that you're never ever going to meet. Try and be realistic as well. Don't try and shoot for the stars very first time, take it slowly. And also make your goals time-based. Make sure that there is a set time frame when you're going to achieve what you're trying to achieve. And a good example of this would be for every year we run a Shave for a Cure campaign. We basically ask New Zealanders to shave their hair for us to show solidarity with blood cancer patients. And they run events right across the country. We have schools, we have individuals, we have corporations take part. So at our very first meeting for our Shave for a Cure campaign, this year we said, okay, what do we want to achieve? Let's look at what we did last year and think about how we want to make that better. Let's look at what we did last year and think about what wasn't so good, what was so good. So this year we set a very clear, SMART goal. We said we wanted to engage 3,500 New Zealanders to take part in Shave for a Cure. We wanted the event to raise $1.75 million by December the 31st of 2014. And we've still got a few months to go, but we're looking pretty good to meet that. We're on $1.53 million at this point in time, so it's going fairly well. And I think we've probably had about 3,200 New Zealanders take part. So as I've said, it's really important that the entire team buys into what you're trying to do. So then they can focus on every part of your project that they're responsible for, and it makes sure that they're really accountable for what their part of the project is. So if you're setting up an advocacy project, first of all, when you meet as a team, it's really important to consider how many people do you want to inform or engage about what you're doing. Another thing to consider is what change do you want to affect? What are you trying to achieve? Is it you're trying to, I don't know, get a new drug in the market? You're trying to set up a new ward in the hospital? Be very clear exactly what you're trying to achieve and don't diverge off that. Stick to it. Also, what's the call to action? You know, it's really important that you've got a clear call to action. So when you're going out there and doing media or publicity work around your advocacy project, come up with a simple tagline so that, you know, people can say, oh, okay, that's exactly what that's about. I think when we were trying to get Gleevec funded in New Zealand, we had the Help the 900 was our tagline for that, because at that point in time, we had 900 patients living with CML. Also, establish a timeline. Timeline is really, really important. Otherwise, I think we all know we can get diverted off on different things, and you know, it's really important that you say, I want this drug in place by a set timeline. Work to that timeline, because it means if you're trying to lobby Parliament or a minister, you can give them clear timeframes when you want your project to be in place. And it's also important to establish where there's going to be an ongoing function to follow the project. So it's also, as I've discussed before, important to set goals when you're fundraising. For capital fundraising, if you're, you know, make sure your campaign's really targeted with publicly declared growth against the project. Donor development, so that means anyone who's donated to your cause before, we have donor development projects. So what we're trying to do with donors is look at how we can, I guess, upsell. It's a bit like the McDonald's prospect. So what you're trying to do is convert donors from someone that may have donated to your organisation to being more actively involved. So for example, with Shave for a Cure, we'd get someone who would donate to someone shaving their hair. Our aim would be to get them so excited about the campaign that they actually want to shave their hair themselves and raise more money for us. And then from there, they might choose to engage with a lot of our other fundraising events. And you know, in time, become a long-term supporter of Leukaemia and Blood Cancer New Zealand. Corporate investment. We have a lot of corporate supporters that help us in New Zealand. Farmers, who you can see in the photo, are one of our largest supporters. They're a big retail store in New Zealand. And how they came on board was the two owners of Farmers both had siblings who passed away from leukemia, so they've got a very strong personal connection. So they came to us one day and said, look, we'd really like to help you. So it's important that we went back and thought, okay, how can they help us set clear goals around that? And the ultimate thing for any organisation is to actually be given money, which is very rare. Usually you get support of your events or support of things you're doing, but they actually gave us a very big cash donation over a number of years, which was absolutely incredible. So it's really important that your goals are quite aspirational as well, and you know, it turned out really well for us that it was. They also are just incredibly actively involved in all the events we run and in supporting our information. They're, you know, we work so closely with their team, it's almost like they're an extension of our team now. And it's important to start out small too. You can set different tiers of sponsorship. So for some of the people that come on board, you know, they might sponsor a booklet for us. They might have started just doing something really small. They might have started doing a shave for our organisation. But now, as we've got to know them, they've got to know us, and make sure you get out there and talk to them. Their sponsorship has just increased over time to a point where it's become invaluable to our organisation. So the different tiers of sponsorship are really important. You can have sort of bronze, silver, gold, and then you end up with brilliant farmers like sponsors like Farmers, which is great. So if you're running an event, it's really, really important that you meet to establish the goals before you set up the event. The big thing with fundraising clearly is how much money do you want to raise. And as you can see in these photos, we've got specialist event websites set up where we actually publicly declare our fundraising target on the website. And we find that the people who are fundraising for us really, really love that, because it's a bit, you know, they can clearly see how their fundraising is going, where they're getting to. We also have leaderboards. So we have websites where people are competing against each other to be the top fundraiser, which we've found really, really helps drive fundraising for our events. It's also really important to consider how many participants you want to attract and break these down into key demographics. So as I discussed before with Shave for a Cure, our three key groups that take part are individuals, schools and corporates. And we deal with them quite differently. We have different strategies that we put in place to deal with the different participants because their needs are very different and the information that they require from us will be really different as well. And what they want to get out of the event is also quite different. If you're talking about a corporate, they are going to want to use Shave for a Cure as a team building exercise and the whole corporate social responsibility that Christopher was talking about yesterday comes into play. It's also important to consider your cost ratio, and this is another thing that Christopher spoke about yesterday. You want to work out how much money you want to make, but you also want to work out what percentage is going to go directly into your organisation to help undertake your work, and what percentage is going to be spent on administration. And I think you mentioned yesterday sort of 50-50 is about the minimum you'd want to achieve there. Also, a flow-on effect from fundraising is awareness, and that's really exciting for us. Our support service workers say they're just, every time we run one of our big campaigns, which are Shave for a Cure or the firefighter Sky Tower climb, where we have 700 firefighters running up the tallest building in Auckland to raise money for us, we get referrals flooding in the door. You know, the media awareness it creates, the talkability, the social media that event creates means that people know about our organisation and are directly in touch wanting our help. And it's also really important to set social media and media targets as well. So when we go into a campaign, that's part of our planning. So we would say, from this campaign for Shave this year, we aim to get 2,000 new Facebook fans and hope that that happens. And also we would say, you know, we want 200 media pieces. So we want to get 4 television pieces. We want to get, I don't know, I can't count now, but 100 media articles and 20 radio pieces and really work towards those targets. And also it's really important to consider when you do an event for the first time, go back and debrief, because if you don't do that immediately after the event, you can't remember 6 months down the track you've moved on to something else. It's really important to get together as a team and look at the goals you've set and say, actually, did we make that? What could we have done better? What could we have changed? It's really important to be open and discuss what didn't work, because then you can think about whether the event's going to be annual and you'll run it again the next year. We run 2 major awareness campaigns at Leukemia and Blood Cancer New Zealand. For World Lymphoma Awareness Day, which is on September the 15th every year, we run a big campaign then. And then we have Blood Cancer Awareness Week, which is the first week in November every year. So when you're planning a social media campaign, it's important to consider how many people you want to reach. And that can often be really difficult because you can't tell how many people read a newspaper article or, you know, actually engaged with your campaign. So we've found social media is a really, really, really fantastic way to actually be able to monitor that, and we'll look at our social media reach and our website hits around that time. So how can you measure outcomes? It's all very good setting goals, but how do you measure the outcomes? Well, they can be measured both quantitatively and qualitatively. So some of the ways that we measure whether a project has been successful is the quantitative tools. So SurveyMonkey is a really fantastic way of getting feedback from people that have participated in your project or campaign. You can send out an online survey and ask them questions and get feedback pretty instantaneously, and it's free, so that's always good. We also, every time we run a group or any kind of forum or any kind of educational session, we make sure we give surveys out to everybody that attends, because that's the only way that you're going to better yourself for next time or understand what worked, what didn't work. And telephone surveys are another way of doing that. They can be quite labour intensive. We don't tend to do them, but they may be something that work for your organisation. Qualitative tools are, you know, probably the less easy things to measure, but they can just be so effective. So You can run focus groups with people that utilise your services or have taken part in a project. And what I often find to be the most fulfilling thing is if you walk into say a shop and you might be wearing one of your campaign t-shirts or have a leukemia bag on or something, and if someone turns around to you and says, "Oh, I know about Shave, I did that," or "My auntie did that," or "Wow, it's so cool that campaign you guys have been running," that's when you know, if everybody's talking about it and strangers are stopping you on the street, that's when you know you're doing something pretty good. So I just want to run through now a specific awareness campaign that we ran last year, and it's called the Silent Treatment. So it was for our Blood Cancer Awareness Week, and what we decided to do was look at blood cancers in New Zealand and think about how we could get people talking about them more. Basically, in New Zealand, blood cancers have a really low profile. We think this is because they're quite difficult to explain. They don't have a direct cause that anybody knows of, and they're not, you can't get checked for them. So what we really wanted to do was raise awareness and get people talking about blood cancers, and we thought, how can we do this? So we work with an advertising agency, and we went and talked to them about our work, and they got really excited. The reason they got excited is they generally work on projects for big brands who are very well known, but they don't get a lot of chance to be creative because, when you're working with big retail brands, it's very formulaic and very prescriptive. Whereas when you've got a charity who really wants to get their message across, we want to be quite creative, and we want to really get people talking. So they got really excited about our work. And in saying that, they gave us, they give us amazing deals. We come up with these beautiful, slick campaigns which look incredible, but actually they're probably a tiny 1,000th of what it would cost for a normal retail organisation to put that campaign out to market. So we went to this advertising agency and said, "Help us raise awareness about blood cancers," and they said, "Okay then." And they literally had their creatives fighting to come up with these, they all came up with about 10 different amazing ideas, but the one we chose was called the Silent Treatment. And it was an integrated campaign, so what that meant is there were a series of television ads that went out first, and then this flowed through to a dedicated website and to social media. So we engaged 10 well-known New Zealand celebrities to appear on the television commercials, and they were in ads which were completely silent. They did not say a word. And when you all watch TV, it's really noisy, it's really loud, and when the TV suddenly goes dead, everyone just turned around and went, "What's going on? My TV's broken." We didn't say what it was about, they just sat there completely still, and it just said, "Go to this website to find out more about what's happening, silenttreatment.co.nz. Once they got there, they found out what the Silent Treatment was about. We challenged people to go silent on Facebook for 1 week, which freaked a lot of people out. They didn't quite know how they were going to live without Facebook for a week, but they did. And we asked them to do it to help us and to help other people who were living with blood cancers. They also changed their Facebook photo to a mute symbol, which got people talking, and that's the symbol there. Everyone was going, "What's that all about? Why can I see this all over Facebook?" They also shared what they were doing with their online friends via automated and sponsored posts. And at the end of the week, we broke the silence with another series of ads featuring our celebrities who talked about why they'd been silent. Sorry. Cool. So what were our goals? What did we do when we went into this campaign? We wanted to get 10 New Zealand celebrities on board. We wanted to obtain some media coverage. So we wanted 1 national television piece and 10 articles. We wanted 3,000 New Zealanders to do the Silent Treatment on Facebook to undertake it. We wanted to increase our Facebook likes by 30%, so get 3,000 additional fans over the course of the campaign. And we wanted 10,000 people to visit our website, silenttreatment.org.nz. So what were the results? Well, in a week, we had over 4,500 people take part in the silent treatment, which meant that represented a total of over 37 years of silence. Over 35,000 people engaged with our silent treatment Facebook page, which we were absolutely blown away about. It was, incredible. 62% of those people engaged in conversation, sharing or liking our post on Facebook. And with engagement for big New Zealand brands sitting at around 3 to 5%, we actually got a personal message from Facebook saying we've never ever seen anything like this. It's incredible. We increased our Facebook likes organically by 56%. And we delivered an additional 5,015 fans in a single week, which was one every 2 minutes. We also had 36,000 visitors to our website. So 13% of those took on the silent treatment and 14% converted to fans. And we got some really good media as well. We had a piece on our breakfast television and 4 online articles. So without me saying a lot more, I will let the video do the talking.
In New Zealand, 6 Kiwis are diagnosed with blood cancer every day, making it one of the country's most common cancer forms. But a lack of awareness and understanding around these conditions meant no one was talking about them, especially sufferers. So, for Blood Cancer Awareness Week, Leukemia and Blood Cancer New Zealand sought to change this by fighting silence with silence. We launched an integrated campaign called The Silent Treatment. It started with completely silent TVCs featuring normally outspoken local celebrities. These drove viewers to a Facebook app that challenged people to do something no brand has ever attempted. Say absolutely nothing on Facebook for as long as they could. No posts, no status updates, and no likes. Within hours, the silence was deafening as more and more New Zealanders took up our challenge and pledged their support. Then, at the end of Blood Cancer Awareness Week, we broke the silence across TV and Facebook.
We want to thank everyone who's taken part in the silent treatment on Facebook.
And to be quite honest, I'm amazed you shut up for that long.
Thousands of app users alongside our celebrities simultaneously spoke out about blood cancers, something sufferers often struggle to do. The silent treatment's results were overwhelming. In a single week, Kiwis pledged over 37 years worth of silence. Our message made over 8 million global impressions, twice the population of New Zealand. We increased fan base support on Facebook by a staggering 56% in just 7 days. And we got people talking, with an extraordinary 62% Facebook engagement rate and extensive media coverage. But the greatest result of all? Kiwis truly understood and responded to our message, donating not only money and their help, but in many cases even bone marrow, demonstrating that silence really can speak volumes.
Thank you, Georgie, for that novel campaign, for illustrating that for us, and also for telling how to set goals and how to realistically measure them to judge our progress as a cause. I would like to field questions from the audience.
Thank you for your presentation. I'm Zhengchun Liu from China, New Sunshine. My question is, how do you balance this kind of campaign and fundraising campaign? It seemed that for fundraising campaign, you have a target of raise fund. It's easier to define the goals. And however, this kind of campaign, it seemed that yes, we can raise public awareness. We spend money, but how to evaluate the gains of this kind of campaign?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, and it's certainly something that we've struggled with. I think having a social media component to an awareness campaign is a really, really good way of actually measuring its effectiveness, because you can see through website hits exactly how many people have read your information and looked at it. You can see with that campaign there how many people actually decided to personally take on the challenge to raise awareness about blood cancers, which for us meant that the campaign was working. It is more difficult than the dollars coming in through the door. That's very obvious. But I guess the anecdotal part of it was really important for us too, and that's what I was talking about before, because so many, I guess, colleagues and friends and would just be saying, "Oh, I've seen that silent treatment," or "I went silent and got really excited about it," across all our teams. So from our support workers to our CEO, all these people sort of were coming in and saying, "Oh, we saw it and we saw the ads on TV and we were very excited about it." So the anecdotal part of things were important for that campaign as well.
My second question is, I think this event is very creative, and how do you develop this idea or project? Could you give some?
Yeah, absolutely. We work really closely with our advertising agency. So what we'll do is we'll go in there and sit with them and spend a couple of hours sort of saying, here, yet again, talking about the goals. So we'll go in with our goals and say, okay, we want to raise awareness. We want a project that's going to engage this many people on Facebook, that's going to get this many hits. We want to derive media off this. So here's our media plan about what we want to do. And they go away and come up with a lot of different ideas. But, you know, if you don't have an advertising agency, use your team. And we've done that before. This is relatively new for us to use an advertising agency like this. The strangest people can have the most amazing ideas, you know. Get your team together, and it doesn't need to be done by an ad agency as well. You can scale it down to something that you can run on Facebook yourself. It's just get your team together and brainstorm. I think that's the key.